Patrick, come and share with us. We're so happy that you're back with us.
Somebody asked in one of the breaks, define technocracy. That's what we're going to do. Uh-oh. Did I lose something? Oh, there we go. Okay, excellent. So I want to define it for you. And my first book on technocracy was Technocracy Rising, the Trojan horse of global transformation. And I would encourage you to get that book any way you can. I have a few left on the table back here. You can get it from my website and technocracy.news, also from Amazon. There's Kindle versions and there's audio versions as well if you'd like to listen on that way. Nevertheless, you can get that information very quickly. And also, I mentioned my boot camp earlier. If you just want to get it all in your head at the one time, take my boot camp. 5 days, 5 hours every day. You get a head full of knowledge for sure. However, this is what I said along the way, starting in 2015. The dark horse of the New World Order is not communism, socialism, or fascism. It's technocracy. I'll make my case. French philosopher Henri de Saint-Simon in the early 1800s said this: "A scientist, my friends, my dear friends, is a man who foresees. It is because science provides the means to predict that it is useful, and the scientists are superior to all other men." See, there's a problem with this statement for sure. Certainly, all scientists don't think that they're better than all other men, but nevertheless, Saint-Simon wanted to basically replace the Catholic Church with this worship of science, where science is the God, and the priesthood that he wanted to establish would mitigate that doctrine to the masses. This caught on in so many ways 100 years later, and we can look to this guy for being spawning all these social science studies today, certainly technocracy and transhumanism, both. And, well, we'll just take a look at it here. This is where it all started in America then, with technocracy. Hamilton Hall at Columbia University. And they had a full footprint basement. Did I still have it? I don't know if I do. Oh, there we go. They had a full footprint basement where they gave half that basement to the Technocracy study group, as it was called at that point. And they set out to create a new economic system for the world. They thought that capitalism was dead because of the Great Depression. And they said, well, we can do better. We're scientists, we're engineers, we should be able to do something to, alleviate the problem. Well, it's just so happened that they were housed next to the earlier iteration of IBM, where they were building the Hollerith computer, a tabulator, that was then shipped to Nazi Germany, forthright. And so they rubbed shoulders with all these engineers, the brainiacs of that day. They were all in the same room, open footprint. And undoubtedly, the technocrats of that day saw forward in time where there would be a time where they would have the technology to fulfill their dream of total management. You'll see this in just a minute. But nevertheless, this is where it started. The Technocrat magazine in 1937, this is how they defined themselves. Don't trust me, this is their words. They said, technocracy is the science of social engineering, the scientific operation of the entire social mechanism, to produce and distribute goods and services to the entire population. First off, the science of social engineering. Bill Federer talked about propaganda, the science, if you will, of propaganda. We see going forward that the technocrats had a problem. They could build factories. They could build wonderful factories that worked like a charm, but they could not control the people that worked there. The problem was people get sick. They get mad. They want to fight. They do whatever else they want to do. It's not in line with the factories. So they led with this definition that technocracy is the science of social engineering. This has been a major thing ever since. But this sets on top of their desire to create an economic system, resource-based system, that manages all resources and all consumption at the same time, keeping everything in balance, they said. So the definition goes on. There will be no place for politics, politicians, finance, or financiers. Well, we see this over the decades, where there's antipathy against politicians versus technocrats, even today in modern context. They believed at that time they were going to displace all political systems at least in North America. They thought they were going to get Congress dismissed. They thought that they would just appoint technocrats top to bottom to run everything in society. And in their mind, think Fauci just for a second here. In their mind, they had the science. And how can you argue with science? There's no discussion. There's nothing to discuss. The body politic doesn't mean anything at that point. You just need to obey it. And so whatever they said, they expected you to obey, period. So there was no place for politicians, no finances or financiers as well. That's another issue. But here's one of the founders of the organization, Technocracy, Inc., in 1933. This is M. King Hubbard, not Hubbard, but Herbert. And he is a principal author of the Bible of Technocracy. Right here you see this is Technocracy Study Course. And it was like 240 pages, A to Z, had all the information you ever want to know about the movement. But you notice the map on the front here. This map is the one that's still on the book right now. Take a picture of it because does this remind you of anything you've seen in the news lately? Possibly. You nod your head if you understand what I'm saying here. This is the map now. See Greenland at the top? Ha! And there's Canada and the United States and Mexico, Central America. Panama's down there too, right? This was their vision for a technate, the North American technate, as they call it. They never said how they're going to do it. They didn't have any money to buy it. They didn't have any military to conquer it. Nevertheless, they figured somehow they're going to get all this real estate under their control, and that was going to be their North American technate. Good luck. Well, we'll fast forward maybe to this evening with that. So the Technocracy Study Course, this is what is said about itself. Technocracy is dealing with social phenomena in the widest sense of the word. This includes not only actions of human beings, but also everything that directly or indirectly affects their actions. This is total social management, by the way. Consequently, the studies of technocracy embrace practically the whole field of science and industry. Catch this now: biology, climate, natural resources, and industrial equipment all enter into the social picture. This was written in 1934. This has been the marching orders that they had over the decades. this is where we are today. So, good engineers that they were, they created only 7 requirements to technocracy to make it work. Engineers are good at that. Are there any engineers here, by the way? Yeah, thank you, thank you. Anybody else? Engineer? No? Only one? Oh, come on. Okay, one. Another one, okay. You know that engineers are excellent at making requirements, because if somebody gives you a project, that's the first thing you do. You take out your pad, say, what do you want your thing to do, whatever it is, and then you make a list of requirements. How are we going to make it work? They only had 7 requirements, which is amazing considering that technocracy has survived for decades and decades on these seven particular requirements, and it was masterful of them to create it in this way. You'll see in just a second. The first 2 have to do with energy. Register on a continuous 24-hour per day basis the total net conversion of energy. That is all of the energy that's produced available for society. Then number 2, by means of the registration of the energy converted and consumed, make possible a balanced load. You could have seen this on your utility statement last month, I think, honestly. They're interested on making a balanced load, unfortunately on your back, but nevertheless, the thing is to balance the consumption and the production of energy. So they were all obsessed about energy in that day, even to the point of creating an energy certificate to use as money, not as money, but they wanted to get rid of all cash and money system that we knew it back then. But they wanted to create an energy script. They would hand this out to all the people in the technate, and you'd get your allocation at the beginning of like a month or a quarter, and you could spend that energy script on anything you wanted according to the energy that made up the thing you're going to buy. Maybe a shirt or a dress or a car, whatever, doesn't matter. They would balance the energy script that you were given, and then you could, did I say that's universal basic income? Right, the same thing. Same concept today. Okay, nevertheless, it was all about energy back then. They wanted to use energy to make the whole system work. There was some logic to it, I think, probably, but nevertheless. You see today all this business about cap and trade, carbon footprint, all this stuff has to do with carbon, energy, et cetera. It all hails back to technocracy, historic technocracy. The next 3 that we're going to talk about here, this really sets your hair on fire, because they talk about providing a continuous inventory of all production and consumption. Really, everything that's going to be made is going to be detailed, and who consumes it, end to end. It came from here, it comes to you here. And they couldn't do that with pencil and paper. There's no way. It would not possibly work. These people were visionary in that sense, that they understood where computing was going, because they were dealing with the IBM people back in that day. Okay, number 4, provide a specific registration of the type, kind, etc. of all goods and services where produced and where used. You see this is coming with this B system at this point, that it wants to track everything and use all inventory, all goods and services, only where produced for sure, but mostly where used. They wanted to make sure that you were using your fair allocation of the continental resources that would be available for you. Who would decide what your fair share of the continental resources would be? Well, them, of course, not you. They would make all those decisions for you. So number 5, provide specific registration of the consumption of each individual. See how many times they said this, they wove this into the definition here, requirements? Specific registration of the consumption of every individual, plus a record and description of the individual. Can you think NSA, Homeland Security, TSA, any other government agency for sure, and others as well, like Palantir, the intelligence company, like OpenAI, the AI company, and all the competitors that they have. And well, you know, this sounds like it's a modern set of requirements today for technocracy as well. It hasn't changed. They're still working off this requirements. That tells me, by the way, that this is the master plan. It has never been deviated from. This is a kind of a side proof of engineering behind this. If there was another plan, they would have rewritten the requirements. They still stand to this day. So, this is the organization chart that they wanted to commit in 1933 when FDR was elected. They actually wanted FDR in print, they said this. They wanted him to declare himself to be dictator and simply appoint an organization chart just like this, where there's a continental director, where there's a continental board, where there's armed forces, and then these division commanders, if you will. And they wanted to have every position held by a technocrat, unelected, unaccountable, because they had the science on their side. Let me just make sure that we're on the same page here. All scientists and engineers do not want to take over the world. They really don't. Most scientists and engineers are pretty normal people, by and large, who don't want to change. Au contraire, they don't want to take over the world, and they don't want any part of it. But this particular crowd, they had visions of taking over everything in society and control it with their science. This, you remember back my definition of scientism from Henri Saint-Simon. This is where this all came from. They had a head trip. They were on an ego trip. They thought, well, we're better. We can foresee the future. They bought that lie. They can't see the future, but they thought they could. And they thought they were so better than anybody else. Who better than us to run all society for the plebes out there who couldn't run it for themselves? Well, here's some graphic pictures of the technocracy movement in the 30s and 40s. They were organized people. Here's a caravan going from Phoenix, Arizona to Golden State Park, or excuse me, San Francisco. And here they are organizing in Phoenix. You see all the cars, the gray cars. That's technocracy gray. You can apply for a car at any car company, and say, I want technocracy gray. That's what you get. There's all makes of cars out here, by the way. They included the hubcaps and the logo painted on the doors of it. You can see on the lower left there, the orange monad symbol. Crazy. So here they are in Hollywood Bowl, having a huge display there. And this is Hollywood Bowl at the outset of it. Wasn't just a few years it was constructed. But nevertheless, here's a guy handing out literature in the back. See all the people in there? That thing was packed out. people were interested in technocracy back in the day. In fact, there was over 500,000 card-carrying, dues-paying members of the Technocracy Inc. organization by 1938. It was a huge social movement as well. Here they are. This is the leader of the movement, Howard Scott. You notice his gray uniform there. That's a gray three-piece suit. Has a gray hat or a black hat, and then overcoat as well. You see all of the people in the front of the bowl, and they all have their three-piece suits on. Look at the women. They had their own version of that. They have the blazer, the neck scarf. And the thing that scared the Canadians especially, when they look at this crowd, they got really ripped that these people looked like Nazis. You know, that's what the SS was wearing in Germany, for Pete's sake, and they got really excited. They outlawed the movement in Canada for 2 years. They threw its leader in Canada, by the way, Dr. Joshua Haldeman, in jail for a period of time. He got out. He decided to flee the country at that point. Joshua Haldeman was the grandfather of Elon Musk. Yes. You can't make this up. You can't make this up. This is a generational thing. We're going to talk about this tonight. So in any case, yeah, they kind of got a free pass on the Nazi thing in America, but not in Canada. Canada got really spooked about them. So, all that to say, technocracy is the only alternative economic system in the history of the world. I studied this as an economist first in my professional career. I studied this to make sure that nobody else had done this. Nobody else had done this, ever. And here's the book that set the course on this in 1969, I think he penned this book. Zbigniew Brzezinski, the book was Between Two Ages, America's Role in the Technotronic Era. Anybody heard of Brzezinski along the way? Yeah, okay. You know his daughter, Mika, right? She's a famous newscaster, right? Nevertheless, when Brzezinski wrote this book, I had to read it again when I discovered historic technocracy, just to make sure that he was talking about technocracy, not technotronic in place of it. But it so happens that Brzezinski was a professor at, guess where? Columbia University. Rockefeller found him out. He took the Dodge, or whatever, took his book, and David Rockefeller came into the picture with buku bucks to support this technocracy movement going forward from there. And then they talked about how they went to the Bilderberg meeting in 1972 to bounce the idea off of them. We should start this thing called the Trilateral Commission, and we're going to foster economic conditions between Japan and Europe and North America and all that kind of stuff. And then they proceeded to found the Trilateral Commission, the two of them, 1973, and they said that they were going to foster the new international economic order. That was their phrase, all over their literature back then. We studied this in ad infinitum, every piece of literature they put out. It was the new international economic order. We didn't understand at that time, I was with Professor Antony Sutton at that time, we didn't know what the word new meant. That's stupid, but we didn't know, we have no idea that there was something called technocracy in 1932, and so we just kind of glossed over it a little bit, I suppose, and well, we figured maybe they were just going to rearrange the deck chairs on the Titanic or something to game it more or less for their purposes, but I know better now, of course. So in any case, David Rockefeller, with his new international economic order, fed it immediately to the United Nations. This was the General Assembly resolution number 3201. This appeared within 6 months of the founding of the Trilateral Commission in official, and here it is, and I just copied it here. This was the resolution, the Declaration on the Establishment of a New International Economic Order. That's all I can say. That's where it fed to the United Nations at that point to be a contagion for the whole world. At that point, there was no way Rockefeller could get it outside of the United States unless he had some type of a global contagion. That was the whole purpose of giving it to the United Nations. The United Nations went crazy with it. So Brzezinski, in his book, this is an amazing statement. He wrote, "The nation state as a fundamental unit of man's organized life has ceased to be the principal creative force. International banks and multinational corporations are acting and planning in terms that are far in advance of the political concepts of the nation state." What a slap in the face. What a slap in the face. An early founding member of the Trilateral Commission, Richard Gardner, Professor Richard Gardner, he wrote an article for Foreign Affairs magazine. And in this, he said, "The house of world order will have to be built from the bottom up rather than from the top down. It will look like a booming, buzzing confusion, to use William James' famous description of reality, but an end run around national sovereignty, eroding it by piece, will accomplish much more than the old-fashioned frontal assault." So the die was cast to create modern globalization between 1973 and 1974 by members of the Trilateral Commission. This was their marching orders, if you will. So we see in 1976 or 79, after the Trilateral Commission basically took over the government of the United States, we see Zbigniew Brzezinski hobnobbing here with Chairman Tang of China, who basically China at that point looked like North Korea, if anybody remembers that. They were totally devoid of any economic activity, just a cesspool of humanity. And Brzezinski was credited, even to this day, as the guy who normalized relations with China. And we discovered later that the members of the Trilateral Commission who had represented international, multinational corporations, they were the first wave of people who went to China to build their infrastructure and their initial factories and stuff. They profited to billions of dollars off that operation. So you have to ask the question, you can probably figure it out for yourself, did Brzezinski teach Chairman Deng about capitalism and free market economics? Or did he teach them about technocracy, the other economic system? Well, I can tell you right now, by the year of 2000, even Time magazine was admitting that China had become a technocracy in the historic sense even. And you didn't see much after that, but nevertheless, Time magazine was one of those early media companies that was folded into the Trilateral Commission, and basically they had a gag order not to spill what they said, what was going on there. But nevertheless, okay. Now I'm going to just give you Christiana Figueres. Some of you will remember her from the Paris Climate Convention a few years ago. She was the ramrod of that. She was well, she's a pistol, put it that way. Organizer, she really was. But nevertheless, she had the title Executive Secretary of the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change. Wow. And this is what she said. And this, I had to get this off of a press conference in Europe, where she said this in English, not Spanish. And after that, this was scrubbed off the internet, totally, but not until I snagged it. This is exactly what she said. This is probably the most difficult task we've ever given ourselves, which is to intentionally transform the economic development model for the first time in human history. This is the first time. That means technocracy is the only other thing that is in the world. This is the first time in the history of mankind we're setting ourselves the task of intentionally, within a defined period of time, to change the economic model that has been reigning for at least 150 years since the Industrial Revolution. Do you think she was thinking about the Resolution 3201 that made it the declaration of the new international economic order, fast backward to technocracy in 1932? That was the only other economic model in the whole world. These were fighting words against capitalism and free market economics. No mistake about it. We see, well, she went underground at that point. She was off the stage, didn't have a national or international stage at that point. She's still around, but she's not doing this anymore. But nevertheless, she spoke for the United Nations at that point, one of the most important positions in the United Nations, heading up the climate, Paris Climate Accord meeting. So we see, looking fast forward now, several years, 10 years, what's going on today with vis-a-vis technocracy, changes in the economic system? We hear talk about economic reform. We hear things about democracy is dead. We hear about stuff, we need to change our monetary system because it's no longer compatible with what the economic system was before. Does it seem to you that there's kind of a great reset taking place right now? That's what Klaus Schwab calls it, the Great Reset, where he said by 2030 you'll own nothing. Go figure what that meant. Well, I can figure what that meant, but I won't tell you right now. I won't make a case of it. But you see at this point this timeline that it speaks here. He said, well, let me read again. For the first time in history, within a defined period of time to change economic model. That means they had a plan in place at that point with a timeline attached to it. I will submit that we're right on that timeline right now, to be swept into another economic system altogether called technocracy. So my friend Rosa Koire, she was a Democrat, by the way. Some people wouldn't listen to things she had to say, but because she was a Democrat, I'll tell you what, she nailed it. Absolutely nailed it, because she understood what the United Nations was doing, and she understood Agenda 21 in particular, and Agenda 2030, and et cetera. this is one of her favorite statements to conclude a talk with, and she did it many times. I've used it many times as well, because she said it first. Credit is due. It is the inventory and control plan for all land, all water, all minerals, all plants, all animals, all construction, all means of production, all food, all energy, all information, and all human beings in the world. She was right. Now, this doesn't mean, by the way, that they're going to succeed necessarily, just the way they planned. Maybe not, maybe no, maybe not, maybe they will, but nevertheless, this is their plan at this point. We have an opportunity in America, as Americans, to probably put the kibosh on this, but good. Probably not with the current administration, however, but nevertheless, the people of our country probably have some power left where we could make a dent in this whole thing and say, no, we're not going to take this in our communities. It probably is going to be that way to work from the local upwards rather than worrying about the top down. But we as citizens have lots of control left in our cities, our towns, et cetera, to interact with our local politicians at least, to put a guard against this stuff like a firewall around your community, and perhaps you can stop some of this stuff seeping into your community. So, Technocracy, the Trilateral Commission, what I submit, that was the genesis of modern globalization when the Trilateral Commission was formed in 1973. We see their fingerprints all over it, all over this business of Agenda 21, 2030 Agenda, everything today, all the genetic engineering stuff going on, the AI stuff. And by the way, you know, I found this interesting. OpenAI had a reshuffling of its board recently, about a year ago, and I thought, well, probably he's going to get the OpenAI, Sam Altman is the CEO, a young guy. I thought, well, probably he's going to get some young people, so some of the tech bros, and to do the job. He didn't. All of a sudden, a guy shows up on a board, an old geezer, like me, Larry Summers. Anybody remember who Larry Summers is? Oh, yeah, blast from the past. Larry Summers is a member of the Trilateral Commission. All of a sudden appears on the most important board in history, probably in the modern era, on the OpenAI board. He certainly doesn't have anything to do, per se, with AI. He's not a programmer. But nevertheless, it's interesting to me that the Trilateral Commission is still active and with us today. I have to say again, the new premier, appointed a premier at Canada is a guy named Mark Carney. You heard about him in the news up here. Mark Carney is a member of the Trilateral Commission also. Keir Starmer, also the head of the premier in UK, he was elected. He's also a member of the Trilateral Commission. You just put that in your pipe and smoke it, I think, for a while, because I don't know exactly what that means, but it means something, because we know that Starmer came recently to Washington, D.C., met with President Trump and handed him a sealed envelope with an invitation in it from King Charles himself, asking Trump to be part of or join the Commonwealth and UK. Trump thought that was a great idea, actually. So I think, no, I don't want any part of being any part of the Commonwealth at this point. But in any case, we see these trilateral types all over the news. If you know where to look for them, they're all over, just like they were in the past. So, having said that, I'll hand off from Rosa here, and thank you for your attention here. I wanted to make sure that I covered this enough so you can have a basic understanding of what technocracy is. Does it make sense to you? Kind of get it? Okay. Do we have any time for any questions? We'll forget that later. I don't have a microphone. If you can, yeah. Well, I can rip it out. No.
Microphone.
Maybe this lady right here first.
Yes, we just happen to have a microphone.
Okay. You hand it to her. Yeah.
Here you go.
So going back to that picture that you showed of Greenland all the way down to Panama, I didn't really mean for you to go all the way back, but you can. You said, does this look familiar? And it was a probing question. I would just like to know what you're maybe asking us to infer there.
What do you think it is? We said this picture has been picked up by mainstream media. Where they got it, I don't have a clue. The same picture has been picked up by mainstream media to explain what President Trump is doing with Canada and with Greenland. I didn't ask for anybody to do that, but that's what popped up. So in that day, they had this in their mind that Greenland should be part of the North American technate, as they called it.
Okay.
They never explained exactly why that should be, but that's what they said. So the same thing with Mexico and Central America. They had no means of actually doing that, no money, and no military force to conquer them.
Mm-hmm.
So
Isn't that kind of pointing to the 10 names in Revelation?
Well, there's that, but my question, I guess, can I ask a second question? Sorry about that. I thought I talked really loud. Could you please tell me where you think Trump fits into this picture? Because that's a loaded question.
It is.
Digital currency.
okay, I think I'll cover this tonight.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Okay. Yeah, great. Well, hey, listen, if you have a question,
Yeah.
be sure and let me get to you
But let me say, there is an
being
answer.
recorded.
I don't have time, maybe just to give it all now, but I will do it.
This evening?
Pardon?
This evening?
This evening?
This evening?
Cool. Yes.
All right.
Yes. Yes, sir. Oh, yeah, over here, sorry.
We're loving Elon Musk and the Doge thing, but the way he's connected to AI and robotics, and should we be cautious, leery of Elon Musk and this administration?
Another question you want to answer tonight?
Well, yes, you be cautious. Cautious. That's an easy one to answer. We'd be cautious, for sure. Okay.
Yes, I recall that when President Eisenhower left office,
Yes.
he warned against the military-industrial complex.
Yes.
What's the connection between his warning and technocracy?
Do you remember the next statement that he made in that address? He
offhand.
warned us against a technological elite thinking about technocracy. That's left off all the references to the military-industrial complex. And he said, and the technological elite.
Separate thing.
Yes, separate thing, separated by and. But nobody wants to talk about it. I'll dig it up if it's on the internet.
I was connecting what her question was about what Trump might be playing in the the global reset or the new economy in relation to the central bank digital currency.
Yes.
Is that later tonight?
Yes, well, that's something that we need to talk about. He had an executive order early on to, is that me? Am I doing that? Okay. He had an executive order early on forbidding the Fed from issuing central bank digital currencies. So that's off the table at this point. There's obviously some other plan involving the crypto czar, the appointed David Sachs, and they have convened high-level meetings in the White House to discuss our digital future going forward. We don't know what that's going to look like at this point, but it's not going to be central bank digital currencies. Something like it, maybe privatized, maybe Elon Musk is going to provide this payment system for. I don't know, but nevertheless.
You had mentioned about the elite wanting to track all our consumption.
Yeah.
Do you think that like Kroger cards, Martin cards, Costco cards, where they're literally tracking what you are purchasing would be part of that program?
Boy, you wouldn't think so, wouldn't you? But this is exactly what happened. If Kroger wasn't thinking about technocracy when they got this idea to use like a customer card, to track points for you, nevertheless, everybody's doing it now, and that's a major source of information for the AI systems to suck out, all this data on our purchases and stuff. So it's played into it. If it wasn't specifically done by a technocrat, it just plays into them perfectly. So it's everywhere, though. You can't go to any store at this point who doesn't have some type of a referral program.
So I look at the number of people in this room today and the number of people that you're able to reach through your talks and your books, and it's got to be, unfortunately, a small percentage of the masses of people in this country and around the world who have no clue that any of the, including myself really until recently, that any of this is going on, and how in the world can they ever be stopped when they have such an advantage over the billions of people who don't even know they exist.
Yeah. I've said for years that even when I began my work, you can't fight an enemy that you do not know. That's Sun Tzu. I didn't say that. That's not my original thing. But that's exactly what he said. If you can't understand the enemy, you can't possibly fight him. So while everybody's been basically fighting this political battle, and maybe they've been fighting Marxism or socialism or whatever, they've been fighting the wrong enemy all along. And now the real enemy, I think, is sneaking up on us when we least expected it. So we'll see how it plays out. I wouldn't say that America doesn't have what it takes at this point. We rejected it wholesale. We rejected it in the 30s and 40s. Totally. It was dead at that point. It's possible then that we could do it again. Will we do it again? I don't know. I can't predict the future at this point, but yeah.
Any other questions? Notice how trusting I am, letting you hold the microphone. Usually we hold it. Okay. Is that camera following me? They can still hear it though, right? Okay.
With all this technology and the tracking, what could we do personally? And should we avoid the driver's license with the star? And
Yeah.
what can we do?
Yeah. Some people think they can get off, maybe they're going to get off the grid or something and live off the land or something. That's cool, I suppose, if you want to be a Luddite for the rest of your life and you're happy with that. For most people, for most Christians, God planted you where he wanted you in the first place. You may not like it, but nevertheless, you need to deal with that because God's the one who's in charge of your life. And you might want to move somewhere else or do something different, but nevertheless, where God plants Christians, he expects them to bloom right where they are. So, we live in a city. I wish we lived in the country. I'm not complaining about it. But, God wants us where he put us, period. So you can't escape AI. It's everywhere at this point. It's embedded in every system we interact with right now. probably any customer support line that you get a hold on the phone. You're talking to a robot probably at this point. You don't know it. Maybe you can figure it out, somebody's a robot, but you can't get rid of this stuff now. So we have to adopt some strategy to live in it. That's what the Bible tells us. Be in the world, but not of the world, right? This is the world we live in now. So we have to adapt to that in a way, but we're not of the world, no matter what anybody says on the outside. We're still not of this world. And we have to cope with this whole thing to adjust our strategy going forward, if you will. Yeah. Pastor Joe?
Oh, I saw a video about the 15-mile city where if you go out of the limit, your car's shut down. Is this technocracy, is this tied in all with all that?
Absolutely, positively. That's part of the program. 15-minute cities, even less than that, 10-minute cities, walkable cities. This is part of the herding instinct that they want to put everybody in concentrated areas to facilitate the tracking and the social movement and social interaction, et cetera, et cetera.
I understand they're building one around Lebanon here. So, any questions? Yes.
Uh-oh, troublemaker.
I don't know if it's related or not, but down in southern Indiana, we're seeing multitudes of apartment buildings going up, and they look like gray, like they're right out of Russia or something, everywhere. And is that related to any of this?
Yes, absolutely it is. Absolutely it is. I wish I could say otherwise. We see America is being converted into a renter nation. When the last downturn hit, in COVID especially, you had signs of probably here in your town or wherever you live, we'll buy your house for cash, sort of thing. What happened along with this happened in Phoenix, huge thing. They didn't advertise that they were BlackRock, for instance, the investment company. When they said BlackRock was buying homes up wholesale practically in Phoenix neighborhoods and then turning them around, renting them, make them, doing whatever they had to do to make them rentable. Then they'd rent them out and it takes other supply off the market so people can't buy homes. Now everybody's complaining in the Phoenix market, we have no homes to buy and the prices are still going up because BlackRock came along and bought all the excess capacity. And so we have the high-rise apartments in our community as well, all over the place. It's amazing. Where did these people live before? We haven't had increase in population, so these are people that got displaced from their homes that they lived on before. It's a renter nation at this point. It's really sad. This is not the American dream that we signed up for in the first place.
Okay, we got one more here.
Okay.
I was going to add, they're also building new home subdivisions and renting them. You can't buy them. You have to rent the homes.
Yes.
We were just out in Phoenix, yeah.
Yes, yes. BlackRock and companies like them, they're doing the same thing with whole developments now. Yep, incredible.
How many of you got a notice in your mail that they want to buy your house?
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Every week, somebody wants to buy my house.
Hey, we're going to close this out, and 7 o'clock tonight, be back here. It's going to be a great time, kind of a team teaching tonight with Patrick and Bill Federer. So